in the movie Ghost, when Oda Mae Brown has all the spirits are wanting to like talk to their loved ones, and then the spirit jumps into her body, and then she's like not possessed, but she's like no longer talking. It's the spirit talking through her. So I was wondering if it was something similar to that.
Quickly about
Um,
the movie goes, I think there's different types of trance channelers, and full on trance will leave their body and let spirit come in and take over. But I see this more as a co-mingling where I'm still very much Celeste. I've just kind of moved over to the side a little bit to give space. The family did get closure, and it wasn't until a couple years later that they actually did resolve the case, and a lot of the information I had given them was validated. They caught two suspects. It was a gang initiation, and they went to jail.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kirby Valladares, and welcome to Spirit Said So. Together, we'll explore powerful stories of near death experiences and spiritual gifts, conversations that may forever change the way you see life. Today's guest is Celeste Starchild. Celeste is a psychic, medium, consciousness teacher, and spiritual coach. She channels messages from spirit and offers a wide range of expertise from energy healing, astrology and numerology, Reiki, tarot, meditation, and breath work, as well as conversations with those who have left the physical realm. She was ordained into priesthood in the Order of the Melchizedek on June 4th, 2016, through the Sanctuary of the Beloved Inc. in New York. Celeste is certified in Reiki 1 and 2 and received her degrees in the Usui system of Universal Life Energy on November 23rd, 2008, in Maryland by Grandmaster Manikana Sarkar. Celeste began communicating with spirit at the age of 4. She resides in Northern Virginia with her husband and her Shih Tzu, Teddy. Folks, please welcome Celeste. Celeste, hi, how are you? How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Curry, and thank you for having me on your show.
No problem. So again, thank you for coming on. And first, a little introduction about you and how you began talking to spirit.
Sure, definitely. Thank you. So it's been quite a journey, and I'm really excited about this conversation, and hoping it will reach other people and they can relate to this story. I think my earliest memory was when I was about 4 years old, and I had this imaginary friend named Jenny, and I would talk about Jenny all the time, and we would play together. And I was a very communicative, inquisitive, precocious, vocal child. And lucky for me, my parents were very accepting, and didn't really bat an eyelash. They're like, "Oh, that's cute. She has an imaginary friend." So one day we were in the car, my parents and I, and we were driving around our local neighborhood, and we passed the house on the corner, and I got really excited, and I said, "Look, that's where Jenny lived." And they said, "Oh, Jenny used to live there." And I said, "Yeah, Jenny died in a fire." Well, as you can imagine, a lot of parents would probably freak out, but it wasn't until many years later that my mom found out that on that same corner was a an all girls school where that had burned down, in fact. So um, it wasn't just my vivid imagination. It actually, there was some evidence around it, and I was glad that I did get the punchline. But it didn't scare me at the time. It was just something very natural. And I had a lot of mystical experiences from that time in my life, a lot of vivid memories until I entered the public school system. And I was kind of, I kind of knew that this wasn't something that you talked about around other people. So I kind of dampened it down a little bit, tethered it. And it wasn't until years later, um, around 2013, that I found Arlington Metaphysical Chapel. And it really became a safe haven for me and a comfort. And I realized who I was for the first time. I found a like minded community. There's a lot of psychics and mediums there. And that's where I started to take classes and develop those skills. And then later on during the pandemic, I found the Journey Within Church in Pompton Lakes, New Jersey. Reverend Janet Novak, who's no longer with us, um, she was a nun, and also medium. And she and other members of the church, they studied at Arthur Findlay College in the UK, which is the only evidential mediumship school in the world. So for about 2 years, I took online intermediate and advanced mediumship training where I could kind of hone in on those skills and learn how to develop that even further.
And was that something that you developed, or do you feel like it was something like passed down by family, as far as, because sometimes I guess I've heard that either people who have experienced a near death experience get this gift, or they've had it almost like they've always had it, or their family kind of has had it. How did it come to you? Do you know?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it could be either of those scenarios or both. Um, I know that after doing many years of ancestral healing and, connecting with ancestors in the spiritual realm, there seems to have been something through the family line on my father's side with my grandmother. We kind of danced around it when she was alive, and we shared those experiences. And I came out and told her who I was before she passed. And I think that's significant because, back then it was a different time, it was a different culture. It wasn't always safe to talk about those things. And if people were in certain organized religions, it might be more taboo. So I think there's definitely something in the family line. Also, around the same age, around 5, um, I had a choking incident. So I don't know if it was near death. It didn't last too long, and I was able to like resolve it myself. But I think any kind of trauma or getting close to death can definitely open some kind of door.
How did you get into readings? Like, when did you kind of discover, like, oh, I should be kind of, let me do readings for people. When did that happen too for you?
That is actually an interesting story. I was outed at work. I was, working in the corporate world, downtown Washington, D.C., very much trying to not let people see the woo-woo side of my life. And I had gone to like a happy hour event after work down at the wharf, by the water. It was like an outdoor concert series,
Yeah, yeah.
and had one too many glasses of wine with my coworkers and completely tranced out. And this is in a crowd of like 1,000 people. And when I came to, my coworker was holding me and crying and calling me her sweet Caroline. She said my face changed, my voice changed. I was basically her dead best friend who had died during childbirth. And she was like, "You knew things that was a secret just between me and my best friend. You couldn't have possibly known this." Um, and I was mortified. Like for her, seemed to be a very healing event, and I had no recollection of it because I kind of like when you channel or spirit comes through, you kind of move out of the way and don't remember everything that always happens.
So,
It's a lot because you're seeing the deceased person. You're the medium between the deceased and the people asking the questions. You're like the intermediary. And then being a highly sensitive person where I don't even watch the news or crime shows or anything, I, for 4 hours, saw the entire violent crime scene from start to finish. And I had to discern how much of that I was going to reveal or share with his mother sitting there and his family. Like there's some spiritual ethics and hygiene that's really important because, this is a responsibility to not be reckless with this gift or careless or insensitive. Like the real purpose is to help people have closure, to offer healing, growth, um, and to not do any harm. So I take that to heart.
yeah, at what point did your third eye come back online?
Yeah, so it was probably around 2014. And I was in my 30s and I had gone through a divorce and I had several deaths in my family within a very short period of time. Grandparents, great uncle. Um, and I was taking Kundalini yoga classes. And Kundalini is all about awakening, you know, your root chakra and moving that coil of DNA, up through your all your chakras and your channels and kind of opening you up. So there's a lot of things, coming together all at the same time. Um, and then when my grandmother passed away, it was just like the lid was blown off the jar. It was just full on communication at that point.
When it comes to spirit reaching out to you, do they reach out to you at specific times? I know you mentioned this, like they come and go in certain times, but I guess, the movie, going back to the movie Ghost, I guess like the Patrick Swayze character is like, won't leave, Oda Mae Brown alone. Sam Wheat, right? That's a name that I will never forget. But Sam, at one point, he just won't leave her alone. Do you get that too as well? Do you get spirit that kind of like tapping your shoulder and it's just like, I need you to get this message out, to this person? Or has there ever been like a relative that's just like, you need to know this and just won't leave you alone until you kind of like, I got it. All right, leave me alone. How does that work?
When I first came online around that same time, it was very much like that. Before I had healthy boundaries, some psychics make jokes about, I'm putting on my baseball hat, and that means I'm off duty. Don't talk to me. Like I need to make dinner or go run an errand or, go to sleep. So it's not as intense anymore, but it is, I don't know when spirit's going to show up or who's going to show up, but I have a choice of when to deliver the message, how to deliver it, or if I deliver it at all. Because I think you have to look at what's appropriate and ethically, in line. But I have had some in the very early days. There's a story of I went to go to get a new pair of glasses, and it's a very busy store on a Saturday. There's probably like 30 people in there, and the salesman's trying to fit me, pick out frames. And I hear this loud, booming voice say, "You need to tell him that this is not his path, and he is a man of God, and he needs to be ministering and be on stage." And I thought, no, please leave me alone. I can't. I don't know who this man is. I'm just trying to get glasses here. Like, there's so many people. Like, please don't. But it just kept getting louder and louder and louder. And I finally did tell the guy, and he started crying and stood up and hugged me and said, "You're the third person this week who's told me this."
What?
So it's like, okay. So, I mean, there are those times still, and it's like, okay, if they're going to be that insistent, I'm probably going to say something.
So was that his spirit guide or was that a relative of his? Like, how do you differentiate like a message like that's his spirit guide's like maybe trying to get him back on his life path, right? Or is it just somebody else, How do you differentiate between who's giving you that message? Do you know?
So usually if it's a relative, I can immediately sense with the training, with the journey within, you ask the questions, is it a man or a woman? Around what age were they when they passed? What's the relationship? Because you want to have evidential mediumship. It's not just, your grandmother's here and she loves you, which is wonderful, but it's like your grandma Rita is here and she wants to remind you about the purse she gave you when you were 10 and the kid who stole it at the party or something like that. In that case, I didn't see anyone particular come through. I didn't feel like it was an ancestor. I felt like it was a message from his guides or his higher self because it was about his path and purpose. So it's also very much tied to what is the message. Um, and that gives you some kind of clue or inkling into that.